Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Throne of Steel based on novel. So let's start. As the Night of Judgment of the Dead began to despair, Long Houchen did not attack him. Instead, he returned with a flash, landing beside Kia. The green ball of light that revolved around him exhibited its might once more. It landed on Kia's back quietly, and rich vitality slowly poured into Kia's body. At the same time, the white ball of light landed before his chest slowly, and dense, white light poured into the center of the gemstone on his armor. This was a tremendous amount of power of chaos. In just a short while, the space around Long Houchen became riddled with cracks, and soon afterwards, there was a clang and the dark purple symbol that hovered behind him shattered, dispersing in the air. Long Houchen was unable to remove the Night of Judgment of the Dead seal in battle, but now that he was not fighting, it was just far too difficult to keep the armor of eternity sealed. Not to mention, most of the Night of Judgment of the Dead's efforts were focused on fending off the domain of purification. How could he stop Long Houchen? The domain of purification suddenly stopped expanding and the white light stopped spreading outwards. Instead, it rose up slowly in the air. Although the purifying power brought agony upon the undead, wherever it passed by, the air would become unbelievably pure. It cleansed the filth of this world on a large scale. Long Houchen and the others were not too pressured in fending off the undead, not to mention the fact that it was the undead who tried everything to stop Haoyue. However, he was the one who had stopped Kia's attack. He did not do it for the undead, but for Kia herself. Through the connection of the soul-sharing chains, Long Houchen sensed the instability of Kia's condition, and rushed to her side immediately. Touching her body, he discovered in surprise that Kia was close to losing control and collapsing. He immediately used the light of life from the divine throne of eternity and creation to pour large amounts of vitality into her body, to stabilize her condition and speed up her cultivation. The unsealed light of eternity domain came into contact with Kia's domain of purification, and assisted her in stabilizing the domain, preventing it from expanding any further, and dispersing more of the purification power. It was not actually Kia's fault for losing control of her powers. This was the first time she had ever encountered something like this. She had never thought that the domain of purification would be so terrifyingly effective against the undead after the Tower of Eternity had expanded. The power given off from purifying so many powerful undead in a short amount of time was just too terrifying. Kia's body had basically been filled instantly. As the inheritor of the God of Death's legacy, all this purifying power should have been good news for able to propel her cultivation forwards and open up her spiritual cavities one by one. However, there was still a limit to the energy her body could withstand. Once too much purifying power flowed into her, and the purifying power outside had exceeded her limit of control, problems would begin to occur. As everything had happened too quickly, the purifying power had already begun to lose control when Kia realized the problem. She could not even request for help. If it were not for the Tower of Eternity, she probably would have been heavily injured from the returning purifying power alone. Fortunately, Long Houchen had discovered her situation in time. Whether it was in this realm or on the Shingmodalu, the Light of Eternity domain had reached the very apex of domains. Kia did not reject Long Houchen either, so the two domains melded together, and Long Houchen used his increased strength from the divine throne of eternity and creation to quickly contain the situation. He first stopped the domain of purification from expanding, so it would stop purifying undead. Only then could he prevent the creation of even more power of purification. Under Long Houchen's assistance, Kia's condition established quickly. Emotions filled her eyes as she looked at Long Houchen. Long Houchen nodded at her with some reproach, indicating her to maintain her current condition. With danger came blessings. Something like this would only happen out of pure chance. With such tremendous power of purification, Kia's cultivation would grow with every bit of it she absorbed. It was much, much faster than just cultivating. Long Houchen understood Kia was in danger, but the undead kings did not. When the Night of Judgment of the Dead saw the domain of purification stop under Long Houchen's control, some minute changes immediately appeared in the leaping soulfire in his eyes. At this very moment, Long Houchen's voice boomed through the world of undead. I had no intentions to fight you, nor do I want to kill you all. However, if you keep attacking, you can't blame us for being merciless and completely cleansing your realm. Long Houchen's voice was not particularly resounding. It did not even carry much emotion. However, every single undead king heard it clearly. They found the domain of purification even more terrifying now. The originally pure white domain now possessed an additional layer of dignified gold. All the stronger undead in the domain had their soul fires extinguished quickly basically, as soon as the golden color had appeared. It was much more powerful than before. Let alone ordinary undead creatures, even the 9 remaining undead kings could only look at the light of eternal purification. They dared not to take a step forwards. This was no longer due to a difference in cultivation. This was just completely dominating them due to their nature as undead. The Lich King's high-pitched voice rang out, "You say you're not going to kill us all. Are you saying that Austin Griffin will spare all of us once it awakens?" Long Houchen said coldly, "I don't know what Haoyue had done to you all in his past life. I only know that you've always been targeting him since he was born. If it weren't for a coincidence, he might have died to your hands a long time ago." The Lich King's voice became even higher, "That's because you don't know what it did in the past. You don't know just how terrifying it is once it fully awakens." Long Houchen smiled indifferently, "I only know it's my companion, my friend. You should be able to tell that if you keep attacking us, there is no chance for you to achieve victory. You'll only be killed by us. Even if Haoyue wants to deal with you after it awakens, it's better than dying right now. You should be able to determine what is for the best." The Knight of Judgment's voice was rather strange. It was slightly hoarse, yet also slightly deep. "Austin Griffin's your companion. Aren't you afraid of suffering from the backlash once it awakens? You aren't weak, but against Austin Griffin that's truly awakened, it's nothing." Long Houchen said coldly, "That's my problem, not for you to worry about. However, I can tell you that Haoyue's only returned to this realm because it wants to evolve. In the future, it'll spend most of its time by my side, accompanying me in my realm. If it's really like what you said that this is T's final evolution, then it might never have to return to this realm again." The Knight of Judgment of the Dead asked in some disbelief, "Are you saying that it won't ever come back again?" Long Houchen said, "I can't guarantee you, but I can say that if you leave here right now and stop targeting Haoyue in the future, it won't target you in the future either." Kia had gradually entered a state of comprehension. Coupled with losing control earlier, she had become incapacitated from battle, apart from maintaining her domain. Even though Long Houchen still had cards up his sleeve, he really did not want the battle to devolve into a life or death struggle. He could not afford a single death in the bright glimmer of hope. "How is that possible? Do you have the right to make promises for Austin Griffin?" The Lich King's voice was filled with doubt. The mask on Long Houchen's face slowly rose up as the 9 gems on his crown flashed with beautiful light. He seemed like a king who reigned over everything. "Here is my right." He pointed at his forehead. Afterwards, 9 streaks of golden symbols slowly appeared under his control. An obscure purple also appeared in the air, connecting him with Haoyue. "What's this?" The Knight of Judgment of the Dead leapt in fright, while the other undead kings immediately fell silent as well. Even the Bone Dragon King transformed from its armor form and appeared beside the Knight of Judgment of the Dead. The same emotion appeared in the soul fire in their eyes. A blood pact. How is that possible? Austin Griffin actually formed a blood pact with a human. The Lich King even began to stutter from pure shock. The other undead kings experienced the same amount of shock as her. In that moment, the world of black and red actually descended into silence. Long Houchen asked sternly, "Do I possess the right now?" The Knight of Judgment of the Dead did not reply immediately. Instead, he gathered with the other undead kings quickly. They were enveloped by a grey haze. Clearly, they were discussing something. Long Houchen did not worry at all. Buying time was his best option. Both Haoyue and Caia needed time to evolve and comprehend respectively. The bright glimmer of hope also saw the change in the situation. Aside from Yang Wenjiao, Duan Yi and the 12 holy guards, everyone gathered by Long Haochen's side. Under the assistance of Han Yu's spiritual stove of light's blessing, he had recovered around 70 or 80%. Although Chen Ying'er and Wang Yuanyuan's situation was slightly worse, they could still keep fighting. Doused by the light of eternity, they did not feel restrained by the realm anymore, allowing them to slowly recover the exhaustion that had accumulated earlier. After a whole quarter of an hour, the grey haze around the undead kings dispersed slowly. When the Night of Judgment of the Dead faced Long Haochen again, his prior aggression had vanished completely. Esteemed human king, you have demonstrated your ability and sincerity with your blood pact. Since you are able to form a contract like that with Austin Griffin, we have decided to believe you. We hope you can keep your promise and keep Griffin restrained. The Night of Judgment of the Dead referred to Long Haochen in a different way, implying their agreement and their recognition of Long Haochen. Long Haochen nodded emotionlessly. I won't repeat what I just said. Although the Night of Judgment of the Dead was unable to gain a further promise from Long Haochen, he did not pursue the matter. He glanced at Hao Yue in the distance in some fear, before leading the undead kings and their undead army away in a slow retreat. Watching the undead kings vanish slowly, Long Haochen produced a deep sigh. White light expanded from his limbs, before all gathering towards the huge gemstone on his chest. When all the light had been absorbed, the divine throne of eternity and creation vanished silently with the central gemstone. Long Haochen tottered slightly. His face was extremely pale. He only managed to stay on his feet with Han Yu's support. He was not weakened due to overexhaustion of spiritual energy. Instead, the weakness came from his soul. The divine throne of eternity and creation made him feel like he had endless power, but the mental effort required to control this terrifying powerful was horrifying. Even though he had completely fused with the throne, Long Haochen had almost expended all of his mental force in the battle earlier. It was very normal for his soul to be weakened. This was also one of the main reasons why he did not want to keep fighting. If it continued, it would probably take too heavy of a toll on his soul. After a moment of meditation, Long Haochen stabilized his condition. He said to his companions beside him, Han Yu, Brother Zhong, please survey the surroundings. Everyone else scattered yourselves in the outskirts of the domain of purification. Let's wait for Hao Yue's evolution to be completed. All right. Everyone moved quickly. They all took up a particular position, while Kia remained in the domain of purification. There was not a single undead creature that could enter the domain without alerting them even if they had become invisible. Long Haochen guarded Kia. His eyes were closed as he continued to recover his mental force. To his surprise, the chain around his neck transformed from the holy unicorn began to give off a gentle, mental pulse, actually connecting with his mind. The unicorn could not help him recover his mental force directly, but it could bear some of his mental exhaustion. That way, Long Haochen would be able to recover his mental force, just like when he normally cultivated. It would obviously be much faster. Under Kia's rapid absorption, the power of purification became thinner and thinner, while Kia's aura became stronger and stronger. Even the Tower of Eternity beneath had turned into the same white as the power of purification. The undead army had indeed retreated, and they showed no sign of returning. Long Haochen could guess what the Night of Judgment of the Dead and the undead kings were thinking. Their thoughts were very simple. If they kept fighting, there was no chance for them to achieve victory, nor was it possible for them to stop Austin Griffin from awakening. At most, they would just make Long Haochen lose a few people, but that would be setting their grievances in stone. Once Austin Griffin did awaken, would it still spare them? Long Haochen used the blood pact to prove his close relationship with Hao Yue, so the Night of Judgment of the Dead needed to gamble on it. He gambled that Long Haochen would keep his promise and stop targeting them. The undead kings actually had no other choice aside from this after weighing the benefits and consequences. It was impossible for people to tell the time in this world of black and red. Kia's cultivation increased as Hao Yue continued to evolve, while everyone else remained alert while waiting. However, in another world, a war unfolded. Boom. With a flash of 9-colored light, a beautiful figure fell down in the distance and fell into a forest that covered almost 1,000 square meters. The beautiful figure was a special creature. It was very pretty, and it was jade green in color with a hint of blue. Its head was very similar to dragons, while it stood around 15 meters tall. Its long tail was covered with rings of dark purple symbols. The most beautiful part of it was its wings. On top of the connection between its wings and back was the same color as its body, but it gradually turned pink further down the connection before gradually become a ruby red. Its wings were especially wide and the part that protruded from the back also gradually changed to a purple. On the edge of its wings were slender spikes, with the spike at the very end of the wings the longest. The wings were also covered by an image formed from golden lines, depicting the moon. Its pupils were jade green as well. However, they were currently filled with anger, while its powerful aura of nature weakened. A burnt black wound existed on its right abdomen. A clear, cold voice resounded through the air, "It's useless. You can't stop me. Your cultivation might be something, but there's still a difference if you compare it to mine. Moreover, you're only a fairy dragon." A figure hovered in the air quietly in the distance. His flowing black hair hovered in the form of a wheel behind him, while faint, purple lines of symbols flickered on his long, black robes. It made his skin seem even paler. His eyes seemed to hide the starlight of the universe, as his handsome face formed a faint smile. Wasn't this the demon god emperor, Fengxiu? This was the world of humans, and it was very, very close to the southern mountain pass, where the priest temple resided. However, the temple union did not receive any news of it. Let alone the humans, even the high-ranking demons, even the moon demon god, or star demon god, did not know that the demon god emperor, who should have been in seclusion in the demon emperor palace, was actually here. The fairy dragon slowly climbed to its feet. It unfurled its wings and took to the skies again. Its flight was clearly rather unstable as it stared at Fengxiu coldly. "Demon god emperor, you better step over my dead body if you want to enter the illusory shrine. Perhaps you can defeat me, but without the demon god pillar, it's highly likely that we'll die together." The demon god emperor shook his head gently. "No, you're wrong. If I didn't have complete confidence, why would I come? Although I haven't brought the demon god pillar with me to fool everyone and to prevent the annoying humans from discovering me, I still have the ability to kill you off completely." As he said that, the demon god emperor extended his right hand slowly. Afterwards, a strange black color appeared in front of him. The black light seemed extremely weak, but in the moment it appeared, all of the light in the surroundings seemed to be sucked away. The light there completely descended into darkness. The fairy dragon produced a low roar, and 9-colored light shone from its body. Powerful pulses of spiritual energy swept out. It was no weaker than the demon god emperor. However, in the next moment, all of the light suddenly vanished. If seen from a distance, the fairy dragon would have seemed like a lantern that was suddenly snuffed out. The light gradually returned. The demon god emperor remained standing there, while the fairy dragon still floated in the air. In that moment, Fengxiu was even more pale than before. His body actually tottered as he floated in the air. The demon god emperor had actually become so weak. On the other side, many black specks had appeared on the fairy dragon's chest. These black specks were like a disease as they slowly spread out. They did not spread quickly, but the fairy dragon's tremendous vitality slowly declined. Fengxiu coughed twice. He actually could not remain in the air anymore, landing on the ground. However, his handsome face still smiled. "Your total amount of spiritual energy should be between 970,000 and 980,000, while my spiritual energy had already surpassed 1,000,000 successfully. I don't belong to this world, so after my spiritual energy has broken through, I won't become a god. However, I have to endure the backlash of spiritual energy every day. This is God's punishment, so I need the status of a god to deal with this issue completely. With the status of a god, I can move through space and the realms, and I won't be bound by the principles of any realm, nor will I have to worry about longevity. You should feel honored to die to my singular annihilation. You are the first, and of course, you are likely to be the last as well. There probably isn't another person who's worthy enough for me to do this on the Xingmo Dalu. The fairy dragon was rather stunned as it looked at Fengxiu. The blackness on its chest had already spread to a third of his body, while specks of light began to drift away from the center of the blackness. Its body was falling apart. Singular annihilation. You actually have achieved that. You actually managed to endure it despite the backlash of God. You should be the strongest out of all the demon god emperors. Your Majesty, the goddess of nature, apologies. I have done all that I can. I can't protect your illusory shrine anymore. As it said that, the blackness suddenly spread faster, and the fairy dragon slowly disappeared in the air as countless specks of white light. With its disappearance, everything in the surroundings seemed to dim. The aura of nature rapidly declined. Fengxiu sat down on the ground, as if he felt nothing about everything that had just happened. His face was pale, but extremely calm. Rings of black light began to appear in his surroundings, and in just a short while, an invisible pressure expanded from his body once more. All of the plants in the surroundings began to shrivel up. This was a sign of their vitality being taken away. 3 balls of light spray forth and gradually condensed into shape in the air. They turned into 3 pure and perfect white lotuses. Kia exhaled and opened her eyes slowly. They were filled with surprise and joy. The 4th rank of the 9th step. Through the purification of the undead army and her understanding that came afterwards, she actually overcame obstacles consecutively and reached the 4th rank of the 9th step. Her cultivation had even surpassed Long Houchen's in a single breath. This was a fantastic encounter for her. And the Tower of Eternity had evolved to a translucent white with her. It had basically fused with her completely, breaking free from the shadow of the slumbering calamity Elux entirely. Congratulations, Kia, Long Houchen smiled at his lover. Joy filled his face. From when she began until now, Long Houchen estimated that roughly 10 days had passed on the Xingmo Dalu. Kia was not the only one who experienced a drastic increase in cultivation in those 10 days. After the battle with the undead kings, everyone else in the bright glimmer of hope had gained rich battle experience and grew more accustomed to their new equipment. They each increased their understanding and progressed to a higher level. Although the battle earlier was dangerous, it was essentially the testing grounds for the bright glimmer of hope after they had all increased in strength. Kia smiled sweetly. My spiritual energy should be around the same as your now, but my cultivation might be slightly higher than yours. After Long Houchen had merged with the divine throne of eternity and creation, his cultivation remained at the peak of the 3rd rank of the 9th step. In other words, he was at the bottleneck. Including the heart of eternity, his spiritual energy had actually reached over 400,000. Kia had broken through to the 4th rank, but her spiritual energy was around the same as Long Houchen's. Long Houchen smiled. Wouldn't that mean you'll be the one protecting me in the future? Kia held his hand and smiled gently. Of course not. No matter when it is, you should always be protecting me. Who let you become my man? Speaking of which, how's Hao Yue's evolution going? The great increase in her cultivation was unexpected joy to her. Of course, it would be difficult to replicate the same incident. However, the Tower of Eternity had also absorbed some of the power of purification, strengthening its element. It brought great benefit to her increase in strength overall. Long Houchen said, Hao Yue should be almost done with evolving. Look. Kia looked in the direction Long Houchen was pointing in. As expected, Hao Yue, who lay there, was no longer peaceful. His body had grown much larger once more, even larger than the clansmen of the Demon Dragon Emperor, the Devil Dragons. It had actually exceeded 40 meters in length and each of its necks had grown thicker. Its purple scales shone with a bright luster as a terrifying aura faded in and out. The 12 holy guards now were no longer willing to remain by its side. The 2 huge bulges at the very front continued to tremble and purple liquid had even begun to ooze out at the very top. Clearly, they should have been 2 heads. Once they had grown out, Hao Yue's evolution would be completed. Long Houchen said, as Hao Yue evolves, he seems to be absorbing a special power of this world constantly. I can't clearly identify this power with my connection to it, but I am certain that it isn't the darkness element and fire element this world is contaminated with. It should be another power, and it seems to originate from itself in the first place. Kia furrowed her brows slightly and said softly, Houchen, whether it's the demon god emperor, or the undead of this realm, they all want to do bad things to Haoyue. It seems like if Haoyue matures successfully, it'll pose a great threat to them. If Haoyue really is that powerful, maybe. Long Houchen let out a soft sign, and he wrapped his hand around Kia's thin waist. He said, Haoyue is a good brother of mine. I can only choose to believe in him. Am I supposed to abandon it just because of my suspicions over its future powers? It's impossible for me to do that, so I don't have any other choice. And I believe that even if Haoyue was that Austin Griffin they speak of in its former life, it's only my good brother Haoyue now. The blood pact has not only brought it our relationship. I've also changed its element in the past. Apart from its noble and powerful bloodline, it also contains a part of my bloodline. Kia nodded gently, all right. No matter what you choose, I will support you unconditionally. Even now, Long Houchen was still uncertain about Haoyue's true origins. He was not even willing to investigate. However, it was just like what he had said. Regardless of Haoyue's origins, how powerful it was in the past and how destructive it was his brother. Was he supposed to turn on Haoyue just because of his fear of Haoyue's future powers? He's almost done, Long Houchen said suddenly. At the same time, the 9 purplish-golden lines of symbols appeared. The intense light illuminated an area of several dozen square meters. Kia also leapt in fright. An additional, terrifying aura that was the same as Haoyue's suddenly appeared on Long Houchen. This aura even seemed to make her domain of purification tremble. With a flash of purple light, Long Houchen had appeared above Haoyue. The purplish-golden light began to expand from his forehead, covering him from head to toe in the blink of an eye. He became the same color. The sudden occurrence alarmed the others of the bright glimmer of hope who were cultivating. After rousing, they immediately scattered and paid attention to everything going on the surroundings. Haoyue had reached the crucial moment of his evolution. Long Houchen seemed to be affected by this evolution as well. Now was the most dangerous time. However, having roused at an appropriate time, Kia became the backbone of the bright glimmer of hope. Her purification powers gave off enough deterrence to scare away any enemy. Kia pointed at the air with the sickle of the god of death in her right hand, and the 3 white lotuses condensed earlier immediately flew out. The 3 lotuses flew off in 3 different directions, forming a circle far away from where Haoyue was evolving. Wasn't this the flourishing lotus flower? If the undead powerhouses really had come to attack, they had to consider the consequences of these flourishing lotus flowers exploding regardless of where they came from. The bright glimmer of hope understood each other well. Those adept at close combat remained outside, while the mags remained inside. Chen Yinga chose to unleash her creature summoning gate without any hesitation once more. After the battle against the Lich King, Chen Yinga had learnt a lot. Now, her summoning and increased drastically. This time, only one creature summoning gate opened up, but an extremely special magical beast emerged from it. It was a pure white horse, which shone with transparent light. Apart from its color and the light it gave off, it seemed no different from an ordinary horse, but very soon, it demonstrated its might. With a flash, just like a white bolt of lightning, the white horse arrived in the outskirts. It actually arrived below a flourishing lotus flower, and it used its head to nudge the flower gently. Something strange happened. The white light from the flourishing lotus flower did not reject it at all. A ring of white light gradually appeared on the horse's body and below its feet. Wherever the ring of light reached, gentle white light would slowly expand. It was actually the same purifying power as Kia. This is a beast of purification, although rumor has it that it is the god of death's mount. Chen Yinga giggled and pointed at Kia with her right hand. The beast of purification, although, immediately turned back. When it saw Kia, it immediately found her to be close. It erupted with terrifying speed and directly arrived beside Kia, nudging her with its large head. Kia could sense the purifying aura from it, and she could not help but become overjoyed. With the assistance of the beast of purification, her purifying powers would strengthen. Obviously, it would be much easier to deal with the undead of this realm. As they carefully guarded Haoyue entered the most crucial moment of his evolution. Purple light constantly surged out from Haoyue's body, gathering above it. Where Long Haochen resided was in the center of the purple. The purpleness was the will of destruction, but due to their blood connection, Long Haochen did not conflict with Haoyue's original powers. The power of destruction was much more brutal than his original power of light. When the will of destruction surged into his body, Long Haochen shattered the bottleneck of the third rank of the ninth step. His spiritual energy rose crazily once more. This time, it was due to the increase in power from merging with the divine throne of eternity and creation, as well as the powers from Haoyue. Haoyue's scales gradually began to crack. The scales, which had become huge as they grew with him, gradually cracked into smaller scales. Each scale was rough the size of 2 hands, and the crests on each scale turned into 9 crisscrossing crests. The refracted purple light had become iridescent as well. The iridescence constantly changed in color. Every single scale on Haoyue gave off an iridescent purple, such that the purple color would vary in depth depending on the angle. It added a mysterious characteristic to it, and it was even more magnificent than before. When the purple had reached its deepest color, Haoyue would become camouflaged in this world of black and red. The 2 huge bulges trembled more violently as well. Even more purple fluid oozed out. As a matter of fact, cracks became visible. Haoyue's aura erupted like a geyser and immediately broke through the 9th step. Afterwards, it continued to rise. In the blink of an eye, it had surpassed Long Haochen and continued to climb up. Finally, a huge head emerged boldly from the bulge on the left with a spurt. It let out a roar. The iridescent purple scales immediately shone brightly and Haoyue's aura erupted once more at the same time. On the right, another huge head emerged and its powerful aura immediately rose again. Part 1 end here.